You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. And tonight is a film night. We will be looking at the One Night in Miami, the Regina King directorial debut. As I learned last week, I can't stream it. I mean, I should have known it, but I've seen other people stream whole films on YouTube with no problem. So right now, if you're watching this live stream, you can see images from the film. Hopefully they don't give me a community knock for that, right? But we're going to, before we watch the film on the Discord, and as a matter of fact, let me post the Discord link in the chat room. While I get that together, just want to remind you guys that this show is a part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network that you should be checking out. As a matter of fact, the Harsh Reality Podcast just dropped a new episode earlier today. Great episode as usual. So you guys should check out that latest episode of the Harsh Reality Podcast. The pro-Black perspective, I assume we'll be having their weekly worship tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you guys should be checking in with the worship tomorrow morning, and you should be checking out the Harsh Reality Podcast for their most recent episode. If you're live with me as well, you'll see, yeah, so I see they hit me a ding for so-called copyrighted info, which is just silly. So I'll just switch off that screen and go to something else instead. It's wild. It's wild. So I got a warning for that. Okay. But what I'll do here is I'll pivot. I'll pivot and I'll put up this article, this magazine article I'm going to read. This guy's a wild boy. Hopefully I took it down in time for them not to stop the stream. If there's anyone here, let me know if you can still hear the stream. Very important that I know that the stream is still going through. So if you're here, let me see something. So it seems like the stream is still going on. Anyway, we've pivoted to not showing images from the film, but the film will be live streamed on our Discord server. Click the link in the chat room that I just posted a few minutes ago. You guys can check out the live stream with the rest of us on the Discord. Let me just make sure everything is okay here. Okay. All right, so it looks good now. All right, so let's read this article, shall we? So this article is titled "The True History Behind One Night in Miami." Regina King's directorial debut dramatizes Regina King's directorial debut dramatizes 1964 meeting between Cassius Clay, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. I'm sorry if you got some feedback there. I forgot to mute a tab to check to see that the stream was working correctly. So the stream seems to be working correctly. I didn't mute that tab. Sorry about that. So you should be hearing me clearly by now. Seems like it's just me here. That's fine. You should be hearing everything clearly now. All right. Okay. So this paper. This paper was by MEILAN SOLLY for SmithsonianMagazine.com. When 22-year-old Cassius Clay unexpectedly defeated Sonny Liston on February 25th, 1964, football star Jim Brown, a close friend of the young athlete, expected to mark the occasion with a night of revelry. After all, in beating Liston, Clay was now the heavyweight boxing champion of the world, proving that his skills in the ring matched his reputation for bravado. As Brown, who narrated the match for an avid audience of radio listeners, later recalled to biographer Dave Zirin, he planned a huge post-fight party at a nearby luxury hotel. But Clay had another idea in mind. "No, Jim," he reportedly said, "there's this little black hotel. Let's go over there. I want to talk to you." Let's go. One Night in Miami, a new film from actress and director Regina King, dramatizes the hours that followed the boxer's upset victory. Accompanied by Brown, Aldous Hodge, Brown, who's played by Aldous Hodge, civil rights leader Malcolm X, played by Kingsley Ben-Adair, and singer-songwriter Sam Cooke, played by Lester Odom Jr., who's a good actor, by the way. Clay, Cassius Clay, played by Eli Gorey, headed into the Hampton House Motel, a popular establishment among black visitors to Jim Crow-era Miami. The specifics of the group's post-fight conversation remains unknown, but the very next morning, Clay announced that he was a proud convert to the anti-integrationist Nation of Islam. Soon after, he adopted a new name, Muhammad Ali. King's directorial debut, based on Kemp Powers' 2013 play of the same name, imagines the post-fight celebration as a meeting of four minds and their approach to civil rights activism. Each prominent in their respective fields, the men debate the most effective means of achieving equality for Black Americans, as well as their own responsibilities as individuals of note. As Powers, who was also the writer-director of Pixar's Soul, wrote in 2013 essay, this play is simply about one night, four friends, and the many pivotal decisions that can happen in a single revelatory evening. Here's what you need to know. Separate fact from fiction in the film, which is now available through Amazon Prime Video. Question: is One Night in Miami based on a true story? In short, yes, but with extensive dramatic license, particularly in terms of the characters' conversations. Clay, Malcolm X, Cook, and Brown really were friends, and they did spend the night of February 25th, 1964, together in Miami. Fragments of the story are scattered across various accounts, but as Powers, who also penned the film's script, told the Miami Herald in 2018, he had trouble tracking down more than perfunctory information about what actually took place. Despite this challenge, Powers found himself intrigued by the idea of four 60s icons gathering in the same room at such a pivotal point in history. It was like discovering the Black Avengers, he said to Deadline last year. Powers turned the night's events into a play, drawing on historical research to convey an accurate sense of the men's character and views without deifying or oversimplifying. The result, King tells the New York Times, is a love letter to Black men that allows its lionized subjects to be layered. They're vulnerable. They're strong. They are providers. They're sometimes putting on a mask. They are not unbreakable. They're flawed. We see a picture here of Malcolm X standing behind the soda fountain, snapping a picture of Cassius Clay following Clay's victory over Sonny Liston, February 25th, 1964. Right? In one night's retelling, the four friends emerged from their night of discourse with a renewed sense of purpose, each ready to take the next step in the fight against racial justice. For Cook, this translates to recording the hauntingly hopeful, quote, "a change is gonna come." For Clay, it means asserting his differences from the athletes who preceded him. The Declaration, Damian Thomas, a sports curator at the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, summarizes as, quote, "I'm free to be who I want to be. I'm joining the Nation of Islam, and I don't support integration." The film fudges the timeline of these events. Cook actually recorded the Bob Dylan-inspired song prior to the Liston-Clay fight, and perhaps overstates the gathering's influence on the quartet's lives. But its broader points about the men's unique place in popular culture, as well as their contrasting examples of Black empowerment, ring true. As John Troutman, a music curator at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, says via email, quote, "Cook, Ali, Brown, and Malcolm X together presented a dynamic range of new possibilities for Black Americans to engage in and reshape the national conversation." So, who are the film's four central figures? Right? On the night that the movie is set, Brown and Cook were arguably more famous and powerful than Clay and Malcolm, Powers told the Miami Herald. Then 28, Brown had been the Cleveland Brown star running back since 1958 and was widely heralded as one of football's greatest players. He just filmed a role in the Western Rio Conchos and would soon leave the sport to pursue a career in acting. 30-year-old Cook, meanwhile, was one of the pioneers who really brought gospel and R&B music into the mainstream, before shifting gears to chart-topping pop hits, according to Richard Walter, a curator at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. In 1964, the You Send Me singer had launched his own label, SAR Records, established himself not only as a musician, but as an entrepreneur. There's a film that you guys should watch. It's on Netflix. What is the title of that film? The Two Killings of Sam Cooke came out in 2019. You guys should watch The Two Killings of Sam Cooke. Very good film. It's a very good documentary. I can't remember. I think it was a series. I think it might have had a couple episodes, but whatever it was too short. Right? Very good stuff. You should check that out. Remember what I said last time? How television can be a tool. You can be watching foolishness, or you can be watching some stuff that makes sense. All right, go and watch the documentary, The Two Killings of Sam Cooke. That's something that makes sense. Go and watch the documentary series, The Killing of Malcolm X, on Netflix. Makes sense. To continue, Cooke's career trajectory basically is a story of American music, says Walter. Going from the deep south up to these big urban centers, getting a bigger audience, and then dealing with questions of whose music is this? Do I have my own community behind me? And what are the sacrifices or compromises I have based on the direction I take? Image of Sam Cooke, 1963. All right. Image of Jim Brown, 1961. All right. I want y'all to look at the faces of these guys in case you're too young to be familiar with Sam Cooke, who died young, tragically, murdered. If you're too young to remember Jim Brown, again, Jim Brown's heyday was before my birth. So, Sam Cooke and those guys, Malcolm X, they died before I was born. But I'm old enough to still be around when footage was regularly shown of Jim Brown, or footage of Sam Cooke or Malcolm X or young Muhammad Ali. In fact, I'm born long enough to still remember Muhammad Ali fighting. Right? Compared with Brown and Cooke, Malcolm's influence, particularly within the Nation of Islam, was waning. The 38-year-old black nationalist minister had grown disillusioned with the religious movement after learning that its leader, Elijah Muhammad, had fathered several children out of wedlock. Muhammad was similarly disenchanted with Malcolm, who made some disparaging comments following John F. Kennedy's November 1963 assassination. Found himself barred from speaking publicly on behalf of the nation. Despite the differences, Malcolm still hoped to regain Muhammad's favor, a task he set out to accomplish by bringing another prominent figure into the fold. Malcolm and Clay met in 1962, 2 years after the latter first made headlines by winning a gold medal at the Olympics. As Thomas explains, the young athlete had made a name for himself by telling a Soviet reporter that the United States, despite its rampant racial inequality, was the best country in the world, including yours. Clay's comment reaffirmed this idea that America was a great country. We were solving our racial problems, says Thomas. But by 1964, the man formerly known as Cassius Clay was articulating a different vision. It caught a number of Americans by surprise, a shift motivated in no small part by Malcolm, the Nation of Islam. This is why when Muhammad Ali, formerly Cassius Clay, passed away a couple of years ago, all that glorifying Ali is fake and bogus. They didn't like Muhammad Ali. Once Muhammad Ali became Muslim, once he pushed back against the Vietnam War, they did not like that guy. And I've heard it said before, and I believe it. It wasn't until Muhammad Ali started to get, become disabled, right? It's only when he started to become disabled that folks really check for, one Muhammad Ali. And that's the thing with the situation that we're in. When you're a fighter, right? When you push back against the initiation of war, you become the enemy of their state. You are not liked, even in death. And so that's something we got to realize about, guys like Muhammad Ali. Now, Muhammad Ali was out here sleeping with white women and stuff, like Jim Brown and them. They'd still be liked. Quote unquote liked. Right? Because they'll be showing that they are traitors to their race. And that's what white folks like. Right? That's why you see Jim Brown around Trump and all this old shit. Was just an embarrassment. Back in the day, I did an episode on Jim Brown too, by the way. You guys should go check that out. Here we have a picture of Cassius Clay attending the January 1964 speech by Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad. So this brings us to the part of the article that talks about what events does One Night in Miami dramatize. On February 25th, 1964, Liston, a seasoned boxer who'd won the World Heavyweight Champion title by knocking out Floyd Patterson during a 1962 match, was favored 7-1 to retain his title. But at least one observer, Malcolm, was convinced that Clay, who'd earned a reputation as a braggart with little to show for his bravado. In fact, one sports writer declared that the love of Cassius for Clay is so rapturous no girl could come between them, would emerge victorious. As Malcolm saw it, Randy Roberts and Johnny Smith, in Blood Brothers, the fatal friendship between Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, Clay's victory had been preordained by Allah. With this win and Clay's subsequent elevation in status, the civil rights leader believed his protege was ready to move on to what was, in his view, a more pressing calling: politics. Well, Brown, Malcolm reportedly asked the football star that night, don't you think it's time for this young man to stop spouting off and get serious? Brown, for his part, also felt that Clay's new heavyweight title was not an end in itself, but a platform from which to advance far more urgent matters, per Blood Brothers. Brown wasn't part of the Nation of Islam, but he was skeptical of passive resistance and nonviolent protesters' effectiveness. Here we see Malcolm X in March 1964. Right? One night in Miami, Malcolm also makes an appeal to Cook, castigating him for his lack of political commitment and excoriating him for courting white audiences through frivolous love songs, as Jack Hamilton, author of Just Around Midnight, Rock and Roll and the Racial Imagination, notes in a scathing review for Slate that argues the characterization is unfair. These kinds of accusations are common when you talk about African Americans in the arts, with critiques questioning whether works should only be seen through the lens of social justice, or through the lens of art for art's sake, says Dwandalyn Reese, a music curator at NMAAHC. She adds, such arguments fail to recognize the value of differing approaches to civil rights. Cook, like many other people, finds ways toward fighting for racial equality, not through the lens of just protesting or being a voice on the streets or on television, but by opening up opportunities for other people, Reese explains, making sure African-American voices are heard, are employed, that the music reaches a broad audience, and also opening doors as a performer. Movie Cook similarly points out that his label has launched many Black artists' careers, making the case for effecting change from within an unjust system. You know, like, look, again, if you out here rolling around with these other folks as women, right? You cannot be taken seriously as being for your people, but you can commend the idea of ownership, Black ownership, the idea of Black business and hiring Black people, right? Putting them in positions of empowerment. You know, in the case of music or the arts in general, having their works being seen by more eyes, being, you know, we should have some conversion rate to it so that, you know, you make more money, right? I've always said it before, you have a Black business, you sell to everybody, unless it's something that is specific for Black folks, right? Something that's specific for them as a nation and for their upliftment or whatever. But whatever you're doing with business, I mean, you know, there's no problem with selling to everyone, but stand on the fact that you're a Black business. So I can't fault Cook there for having a Black business and employing his people. This notion, though, that there's different ways, you know, that sounds like some integrationist talk, different ways that civil rights or Black empowerment, that sounds like integrationist talk, like, but let me go and move through and sleep with all the white women, and then I'll turn back around later on and I'll give some handout to a couple of Black folks, and yeah, I did my part in the struggle. That's not really how that works. Okay? That's not how that works. To continue. Troutman echoes Reese's sentiment, saying, the mere acts of claiming public spaces with such success, of running a record company to create more space for Black voices, these were devastatingly powerful, critical weapons to wield. And you know about that, and I'll have to look into that, but typically when Black folks have a label, it's a subsidiary of a white label. I don't know if that was the case in Sam Cooke's case, but historically that is the case, right? You have a label, you call it a Black label, but the reality of it is, it's a Black company subsidized by a white one, right? To continue. So this brings us to the part, what happened to the four men after February 25th, 1964? The morning after one night in Miami's eponymous events, an uncharacteristically recalcitrant Clay publicly confirmed his ties to the Nation of Islam for the first time. Motivated by his newfound status as the world's heavyweight champion, he proceeded to deliver a freewheeling meditation on the religious movement's merits. In that speech, says Thomas, Clay also took care to distance himself from his athletic predecessors. Unlike Floyd Patterson, a former heavyweight champion who promoted integration, he had no plans to move into a white neighborhood. Quote, "We believe that forced and token integration is but a temporary and not an everlasting solution," end of quote, Clay told reporters. "It is merely a pacifier." Quote, "I don't have to be what you want me to be," Clay added. "I'm free to be who I want." By identifying himself as a convert into the Nation of Islam, the boxer attracted ire from white and black Americans alike. His stance became unpopular in white America because he had denounced America and denounced integration, Thomas explained. For African Americans, the fact that he wasn't Christian is highly problematic. Here we have a picture of Cassius Clay on the left, Malcolm X on the right, celebrating the boxer's victory over Sonny Liston on February 25th, 1964. Right? And I want you to look at Cassius Clay. I want you to look at Malcolm X. This is from the night of the film. Right? I want you to look at these guys, and this picture you've probably seen all your lives, right? But keep that picture in mind. As Clay grew closer to the Nation of Islam's leader, Elijah Muhammad, in the months following the fight, his friendship with Malcolm faltered. The last time the pair saw each other was in May, when Malcolm attempted to greet his former friend, by then known as Muhammad Ali, during a visit to Ghana. Quote, "He wants to engage with me, say hello." Smith, co-author of Blood Brothers, told NPR in 2016. He doesn't know Ali is mad at him, that they're no longer friends. He's got this half smile on his face. Muhammad Ali just stone-faced. Says, "Brother Malcolm, you shouldn't have crossed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad." And he essentially walks away from it. And that's the problem I have. When you watch the documentary on Netflix, The Killing of Malcolm X, right? Or Who Killed Malcolm X, I think it's called. That's one of the things that I cannot be a religious person. The zealotry is so high, right? Like Muhammad Ali allowed people to tell him not to be friends with Malcolm because Malcolm was speaking the truth about their so-called beloved apostle. That's just not my get down. If I ain't gonna like you, it's because something you did I didn't like personally, not because someone told me to. And that's something we do too much as a people who are in the midst of war. We do too much of this friendly fire bullshit. We're upset, right, at folks because of something another man said. That's weakness. That's weak. It's embarrassing even. It's embarrassing that we are this way. Ali, who in 1975 rejected the nation in favor of Sunni Islam, the same denomination Malcolm embraced following his departure from the movement, wrote in his 2004 autobiography that turning my back on Malcolm was one of the mistakes that I regret most in my life. The boxer never reconciled with his former mentor. Almost exactly a year after the Clay Liston fight, Malcolm was assassinated under still undetermined circumstances. Civil rights icon's autobiography, based on a series of interviews with journalist Alex Haley, was released posthumously in October 1965, showing in many ways that he became much more famous in death than he was in life, according to Thomas. Cook, the charismatic musician who watched from the sidelines as Clay knocked Liston out, preceded Malcolm in death by just 2 months, sustaining a fatal gunshot wound during an altercation with a Los Angeles motel manager. Though authorities ruled the shooting a justifiable homicide, questions surrounding the incident remain. When you hear about Sam Cooke, the popular narrative is really tied to a change is going to come. And there's less public awareness about all the other things he was doing about the trajectory of his career. His own awakening as a performer and songwriter, says Reese. That's a loss for the rest of us, not understanding what he was able to accomplish at that time. Owning his own record company, fostering artists, songwriting, being an entrepreneur, setting up all kinds of systems to really not only extend his reach, but to support the work of others. Right? And that's to be commendable, by the way. Right? That's to be commendable. That's to be commended, I should say. A year after the heavyweight bout, just 2 of the 4 men featured in One Night in Miami were still alive. Later that year, Brown, then filming the movie The Dirty Dozen, officially retired from football. Spent the next several decades balancing acting with activism. Thomas notes, establishing a Black economic union aimed at helping athletes develop businesses in their community, and Amer I Can, an organization that aims to help formerly incarcerated individuals re-enter society. Today, the 84-year-old who has faced accusations of violent behavior toward women throughout his career is the last surviving member of the One Night in Miami foursome. Ali died in 2016 after a decades-long struggle with Parkinson's disease. Banned from boxing in 1967 after refusing to serve in the Vietnam War, he returned to the ring in 1970 and went on to win 2 more heavyweight championships. In 1996, the organizers of the Summer Olympic Games in Atlanta chose Ali to light the flame at the opening ceremonies, a significant decision given the Games' setting in the post-Jim Crow Deep South. To pick someone like Muhammad Ali, who 30 years earlier was one of the most hated men in America, to now becoming one of the most beloved figures in 1996, is a really important moment, says Thomas. And it's a moment in which we could measure some level of racial progress. No, we can't. No, we can't. All right? No, we can't. The creator adds, we came to realize that he was right about the Vietnam War, and he was right about a lot of the racial injustice that took place in society. I don't necessarily think that he changed very much. It's that society finally caught up to him. The country changed. No, it didn't. All right? No, it didn't. And that's the end of this magazine article. All right? But this article is to give you an idea what's real and what's false in this film that we're going to be watching on the Bitter Medicine Podcast Discord server tonight. All right? We're going to be watching this film tonight, and I hope that you guys will join us as we do. In the chat room, I've posted the Discord link. Join the Discord. When you enter the Discord, you're going to see a bot. Yep, a bot is going to greet you. And the bot is going to ask you, what role are you here for? You have a choice between a podcast fan or a writer for the African-centered curriculum. You can choose podcast fan, and that's fine. And you'll be able to view the film that is showing tonight on the Discord in the channel called The Lounge. All right? If you want to be down with the African-centered curriculum, that's fine too. Right? Ask me, come into the Discord, click the icon on the bot to be a part of the curriculum writers, and then ask anyone or ask everyone, right? Just type at everyone, where do you find out more information for the curriculum? We've done a curriculum critique. A few people who are on the Discord have responded. They gave me a critique, but I cannot seem to tie people down to a day and a time where we can discuss it. I appreciate the critique, but I'd like to discuss it. I've also recently posted book considerations for the curriculum based on grades, right? So the curriculum that we critiqued had some book suggestions. I pulled those out of the curriculum, set up a document so that people can add additional books, or you could even explain why you think a certain book from the curriculum that we critiqued should not be included. I haven't heard from people really concerning those two major items. And I'd like to go over those things before we really start moving forward. As a matter of fact, in going over those things, right, it's my hope that I could then start to give people, different small tasks that they can do towards creating the curriculum. Right? So I'm saying this, and I'm saying this, peacefully. I need more folks to become a little bit more active. Again, you're not doing this for me. You're doing this for your people and for our future. Okay? Before I go and set up everything for the show, for the live stream of this film, that's going to happen at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just want to remind you guys that this show is a part of a podcast network, and you should check out other shows on the network.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
And we're back. So check out those shows. Also check out the Queen's Council podcast on KWAZ Radio. And so I'm going to call this a wrap at this point. I'm going to go over to the Discord. Remember, the link is posted in the chat room. Head over, click the link, and come on in and join our Discord. Show starts at 9 p.m. All right? So until next time, guys, this has been the Bitter Medicine Podcast with yours truly, Koku. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.